Hello everyone, and thank you for checking out this video. Today we'll be talking about Plato's Republic, which is one of the most important books in the entire Western philosophical canon. So much so that you can take entire courses on this book, or you can even, there's even been philosophers that have spent their entire lives focused on certain sections of this book. Obviously I can't go into nearly that much detail, but I hope this video will provide you a basic foundation of this book, so that you can build on it through your reading of Plato and reading of philosophers responding to Plato. The two basic themes in this book are what is justice, and is it better to be just or unjust? If you like this video, please give it a like, and as well as subscribe to my channel. Encourage me to make more videos, and thank you so much for watching. Enjoy.
The Republic begins with Socrates walking with Glaucon to the Piraeus to pray to the goddess. This was a religious celebration where one could mix piousness with fun. Glaucon is actually the brother of Plato, and so is Edemontis, a character that we will soon meet. A servant runs up and asks them to stop. Soon, Polemarchus, Edemontis, and others come along, and they argue that they outnumber Socrates and Glaucon, and if they don't want to fight, then they should come to Polemarchus's house. This is a joking gesture, and they likely mean no harm, but Socrates and Glaucon oblige anyway. They also meet Polemarchus' father named Cephalus. Socrates asks Cephalus what it's like to be of advanced age, and Cephalus says that it's actually pretty great. This is because he is no longer a slave to his passions, such as his sex drive or his lust for money. This will become an important theme in the rest of the book, and now we will begin the first major argument, which is what is justice? Cephalus believes that justice is what is being truthful and returning what one owes. Socrates sees this as problematic because what if we owe a crazy person his sword back? It's not a great idea to give a crazy person a sword because he could harm you, himself, or others. Polemarchus then claims that justice is helping one's friends and harming one's enemies. But is this appropriate in medicine? Should a doctor harm those that he doesn't like? Also, we don't always know who our enemies and our friends are, and even treating an enemy unjustly seems wrong. Who knows, perhaps you could turn them into an ally if you just treat them with kindness. Thrasymachus chimes in with a much more Machiavellian ideal, saying that justice is whatever is best for the strongest. Socrates replies, does it mean that justice is what the stronger think is beneficial to them, or what is actually beneficial to them? And don't the strong rulers make mistakes and sometimes create laws that do not serve their advantage? Thrasymachus ends this discussion by saying that the truly strong do not make mistakes. We develop Socrates' beliefs on justice throughout the rest of the book. Essentially, he defines justice as the harmony and order of the soul, where reason rules over the appetites and desires, and that a just society can be achieved when each individual in that society has a just soul. These souls need to be ordered in a hierarchical manner, with reason at the top, followed by the spirit, and finally the appetitive part of your soul. Reason, for Socrates, and thus Plato, represents wisdom and rationality, while the spirited part represents courage, and the appetitive part represents desires and pleasures. Now, is it better to be just or unjust? Quoting from the Internet Encyclopedia of Philosophy, Socrates offers 3 arguments in favor of the just life over the unjust life. The just man is wise and good, and the unjust man is ignorant and bad. Injustice produces internal disharmony, which prevents effective actions. Virtue is excellence at a thing's functions, and the just person lives a happier life than the unjust person, since he performs the various functions of the human soul well. Glaucon then defends injustice. Again citing from the Internet Encyclopedia of Philosophy, justice originates as a compromise between weak people who are afraid that suffering injustice is worse than doing it. 2. People act justly because this is necessary and unavoidable, so justice is good only for its consequences. And 3. The unjust person with the reputation for justice is happier than the just person with the reputation for injustice. Socrates argues against this by saying that the good things are both good in themselves and bring about good consequences. I'll let you decide who wins this argument, as this conversation leads to a discussion about what the just society would look like. Socrates describes a small collection of people, let's say 8 to 10 total. These people enter into this organization because each has their own proclivities and abilities, which means that creating a strong division of labor is better for all. This is a fine start, but what if we want a city that allows luxury and leisure? Then we need to find a standing army, trade, commerce, education for the elites, and much more. Socrates argues that the society needs to be built around a collective myth that acts as a sort of glue, blinding everyone together. He calls this the myth of the metals. Quote, "The myth of the metals portrays each human as having a precious metal in them. Those naturally suited to be rulers have gold, those suited to be guardians have silver, and those suited for farming and other crafts have bronze. Essentially, everyone knowing their role allows for the collection of notes to become harmonious." However, he does not believe that the leaders of the society, also known as the philosopher kings, need to come from the upper classes. He believes that this is through education that the philosopher king should be chosen, and everyone, including women, should have an equal shot at it. In this way, he was actually somewhat of an early feminist, because he did not think that women were any less suited for the various roles of society than men were, which was a fairly radical claim at the time. The actual education of philosopher kings will be discussed later on. Not only do you need to have everyone know their place, but you also need to have everyone act properly in that place. To deal with this, he describes the virtues of the classes, which are summarized by the Internet Encyclopedia of Philosophy. Quote, "The city will need these 3 virtues, namely wisdom, courage, and moderation. The wisdom of the just city is found in its rulers, and it is the type of knowledge that allows them to rule the city well. The courage of the just city is found in its military, and it is a correct and lawful belief about what to fear and what not to fear. The city's moderation, or self-discipline, is its unanimity in following the just city's structure in terms of who should rule and who should be ruled. The city's justice consists of each class performing its proper function." End quote. There are many other ways to organize a city, but each comes with its own issues. First, there is timocracy, which is partway between reason and spirit. This is a city pursuing honor generally through a militaristic rule. This is unsustainable compared to pursuing wisdom. Next, we have oligarchy, which is when elites pursue wealth at the expense of the poor, which breeds resentment. Then comes democracy, because the rich get weak from luxury and the poor resent the rich so much that they're overthrown. This brings freedom, but with this freedom comes the sole quest for pleasure through material goods and bodily desires. The people lose self-discipline and become slaves to their appetites. Finally, you have tyranny, which comes from people becoming so free that any barrier to their freedom seems like tyranny, and eventually a strong man comes along pretending to represent the people and often turns them on the elite. Then a bloodbath ensues where everyone becomes guilty. Everyone will become suspicious of everyone else, and a potential military state can come out of this, which will bleed the city dry. Also, anyone who is in the elite in any form, including of skill or competency, will be perceived as a threat because they could have potential power. Socrates represents the philosopher king, Glaucon represents the timocrat and the oligarch, Polemarchus is the democrat, and Thrasymachus is the authoritarian man. Socrates claims that the best rulers are those that do not wish to rule, but are forced to rule because there is no one better to do the job, and they don't want to be ruled by someone inferior. These rulers will be known as philosopher kings, and they will be old, wise, and strong. The fact that they are old will mean that their passions are less, which we previously discussed in regards to Cephalus. Philosophers are the best rulers for several reasons. They love wisdom, they love what is rather than what could be. They have courage, they are moderate, they hate falsehoods, and they have good memories, and they do not have a combative nature like the warrior class. These philosopher kings will be communists with no private property, who share wives and children, and are separated from the rest of society so they're not corrupted. The education of these classes needs to be long and arduous, so that they will be up to the task that they will face. It goes as follows. Up to the age of 20, all people get the same education, like music, gymnastics, etc. Those that drop out here will be farmers and merchants. From the ages of 20 to 30, they will learn war and mathematics, and those that complete this training will become the warrior class. Then from 30 to 35, they will get dialectical training, and then from 35 to 50, they will do hands-on politics in the city, where at the age of 50, they can then become philosopher kings. The guardians will be a class just below the philosopher kings, and they will be tasked with the protection of the city. The guardians will have specific physical education and a healthy diet in order to promote the fitness that they'll need for battle. Interestingly, Socrates claims that these warriors must first train their souls and then their bodies will follow. It is important to Socrates that these warriors maintain order within the city so that things don't change drastically once you have stability within the city. They must also fight off invaders, of course. Though he isn't too much for military conquest, he does believe that the warriors must be extremely brave and not be tainted by the culture around them, just like the philosopher kings. Now we will discuss the allegory of the cave. To better understand the philosopher kings, Plato comes up with the allegory of the cave. The allegory represents a hierarchical structure of reality where the lower levels represent the world of appearances and the higher levels represent the world of forms. Plato argues that the world of forms, which is eternal and unchangeable, is more real than the world of appearances which we live in, and it's only a mere reflection or imitation of the world of forms. He suggests that only those who have access to the world of forms through reason and philosophical contemplation can truly grasp the nature of reality and achieve justice. In the allegory, prisoners are chained in a cave facing a wall and can only see shadows cast by objects outside the cave. Plato argues that the prisoners' perception of reality is limited and distorted, as they can only see the shadows which are mere appearances and not the real objects that cast the shadows. He suggests that the prisoners represent ordinary people who are trapped in the world of appearances, unable to perceive the higher reality of the world of forms. The philosopher, on the other hand, is like the prisoner who has been freed from the cave and has gained access to the higher reality of the world of forms through reason and philosophical contemplation. Now we move on and end with the purpose and correct implementation of art. Socrates says that the point of art is to do what is best for those receiving the art, be they customers or observers. Art should be censored so that it promotes the general good. He doesn't want poetry to portray the underworld in a bad light because soldiers can't be afraid of death. Also, the heroes and gods shouldn't lament so that the guardians will be courageous. Art should not encourage sins by the people or the guardians such as avarice, hubris, impiety, etc. Good art makes people better, and bad art makes people immoral. He seems to also think that imitation can be worse than words of mouth, because it is worse to imitate immoral behavior than to talk about it. Plato even goes so far as to be an enemy of Homer. He believes that Homer promoted immoral values that spread throughout society. Achilles and Odysseus were violent and immoral actors, and philosopher kings are needed because they are much more even-tempered and rational. This is who the men of society should worship, and not the heroes of folk tales.
Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope if you enjoyed it that you will give it a like, and you will subscribe to my channel as well, and I will have a whole lot more content coming for you soon. Thanks.